Can you imagine being a sales professional when your country is embroiled in a world war? Well, that happened back in 1917 here in the United States, but really across the world even earlier, when we were in World War I. Today, I want to talk about what it was like to sell while a world war was going on, but also this concept of selling with purpose, selling beyond your paycheck for something that has a higher meaning. So, buckle up. This is season 5, episode number 1.
There is nothing new in the world of sales except for the history you do not know. Welcome to the Sales History Podcast, bringing the brilliant and sometimes strange minds, methods, and ideas from the sales profession's past with applications to today. Here is your host, the best-selling author of 2 books, with a 3rd coming in January of 2026. CSP speaker, trainer, and nerd, Todd Caponi.
When we do anything with a higher purpose, we tend to do it better, don't we? We find another gear, we're more precise, we bring more enthusiasm and energy to the task at hand. Now, whether or not you're a basketball fan, the time I'm recording this, the NBA Finals here in 2025 just finished up. And one of the teams, the Indiana Pacers, their star player got hurt in the first quarter. And it's their star. It was game 7. So winner take all. Your star ends up getting hurt. What happens? Well, the rest of the team, instead of bowing down and playing dead, they galvanized and they played with higher energy. Now, unfortunately, they did lose the game, but they were winning at halftime. But they found another gear because they were playing for him. Back earlier this year, February of 2025, the National Hockey League, they took a break from their regular season schedule to play something called the Four Nations. So it pitted country versus country. These players, they get paid to play, but for this, they weren't actually getting paid extra to play in the Four Nations, but the energy, the enthusiasm, it was the most watched hockey tournament of all time. And when the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs just finished here at the end of the season, Four Nations, the viewership was actually higher. Why? Because they played with energy, they played with passion, they played with a higher purpose. Now, what does that have to do with the sales world? Well, as it turns out, similar circumstance took place in 1917. Salespeople were selling for their country, and as a result, they did things the right way. They sold with purpose, they sold with energy, they sold with a calling beyond just their paycheck. So let's go back to that time. It was July of 1916. The sales world had just held its first significant convention. It took place in Detroit, Michigan. There was over 3,000 people attended what was called the World Sales Congress. Now, as an example of its significance, the opening keynote speaker was none other than Woodrow Wilson, who was the sitting U.S. president at the time. Now, he was finishing his first term in office. His keynote was focused on the importance of salespeople to the overall economy of the country. The theme of both his keynote and the conference itself was encompassed in a single word: service. Now, 1916 also represented a time when Europe was falling into what would become World War I. That the fighting began in 1914, it grew through 1916, and in early 1917, the United States stepped into an active role in the war. In April of 1917, the United States officially declared war against Germany, and along with the declaration, Woodrow Wilson asked for what he called, quote, universal concentration upon preparation for the war. So he was calling on everybody, like, it's time to prepare. And his message to the American people was, quote, let's unite for service. Now, for the sales community, what did it mean to prepare for war? What role could salespeople possibly play in helping the country ready for battle? Well, leading up to the April of 1917 declaration of war, tactically, the sales community had been focused on their own enablement. The World Sales Congress had been planning for its second convention to take place again in Detroit, Michigan in June of 1917. So that's 2 months after the war started. And the question was being asked, should we even have this convention? So who did they ask? Well, Woodrow Wilson was starting his second term, a term, by the way, that he was running on that we would not get involved, but we got involved in the war anyway. But they asked him, hey, should we have this convention? And he himself said yes. D.M. Barrett wrote in the May of 1917 edition of Salesmanship magazine, quote, some will go to war with muskets, some with airplanes, some with boats, and some with bandages. Call this the line of attack. Others will go to war with hoes and flails and teams of oxen. Call this the line of support. Still others will go to war with pens and traveling bags and adding machines and cash registers. Call this line the bulwark of both attack and support. The components of the three lines may interchange, going back and forth, but the lines themselves must remain. They are interdependent. There must be a man to fight, and the man to feed the man who fights, and finally, the man who compensates the feeder of the man who fights. Soldier, farmer, and salesman form the only trio which can triumph in the test to which we are put. So, our military prepared to fight by, quote, compensates the feeder of the man who fights. Barrett is speaking of helping those organizations who are providing the supplies do so with the right products and solutions, sold at the right price, with the right expectation set, delivered as promised. Salespeople helping manufacturers understand what's possible, make the right decisions to aid in their effort, with the salespeople's own commissions and quotas far in the backseat. It required a higher level of trustworthiness, selflessness, and service from the sales professionals. Salespeople served instead of sold. The country respected the profession, trusted the professionals in it, and admired those who helped the feeders of the man who fights. On Sunday, June 10th, 1917, at 9:30 a.m. at the Arcadia Auditorium in Detroit, Michigan, that second annual session of the World Salesmanship Congress kicked off. The orchestra played, the invocation was given by Reverend Joseph A. Vance, the national anthem was sung by all participants, and the WSC, World Sales Congress President, Norval A. Hawkins, gave the opening address of welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, or better, fellow salesmen, I am mighty glad to see you. Despite the war with all its horrors and sadness, I am happy at this moment when I meet you and we think together of what we are doing and can do among ourselves in our common and universal service for better salesmanship. Hawkins went on. This is a little longer, so buckle up, but it's so good. You are all soldiers of the daily fight, the fight to meet each day and win it. But your enlistment is for a lifetime, not for a short term. You cannot come back from service in the world field after a year or two and wear the hero's laurel for the rest of your life. The public waves no flags and erects no monuments for you. Yet, in this great crisis of civilization, your services are as vital to America and the Allies as the services of the men in the trenches and the professional men and women serving with the Red Cross. The Commander-in-Chief of our Army and Navy, the President of the United States himself, recognizing the vital necessity of an organized army of salesmen to develop the sinews of war, has especially sanctioned this second meeting of our Congress, and our motto is thus entailed for our service now, more than ever, is to our country. Without the salesmen and saleswomen, the efforts of the men in the trenches will be futile. The business of America is the very lifeblood of civilization. If we let American business become sluggish, the life supply of the men who face the bullets will be cut off. How good is that? Isn't it awesome? So Hawkins went on to talk about the magnitude of the war and how Germany, I understand, has already borrowed nearly 25% of her total wealth. He added that the business in the United States must go on as usual, and we salesmen must do our big share to keep it going. The featured keynote speaker at this second convention was not the President of the United States. He was a little busy, as it had been the previous year, but this time it was Charles M. Schwab. Probably heard the name. His message was the same. Quote, if the privilege of going to the front by reason of age has been denied to most of us, the privilege of serving our country at home in industry, in food, and in money will still come back to each of us. And your credit and reward in the years to come will be equal with all classes of people. So remember, most of the people, and some say there was millions of soldiers sent to the front lines, and we're talking about young, children, like 18, 19, 20, that age. So most of the people that were in sales were not the ones going to the front line. So that's what Schwab was talking about. Now, World War I came to an end on November 11th of 1918 as Germany signed the armistice at Caponi. And I'm totally saying that wrong, I'm sure. But the sales world began to look different following the war. But for a time, the profession was considered a trustworthy, respectful, and even admired focus. What may be my favorite sentence from Norval A. Hawkins' opening address was this: in the service of salesmanship, you unite for the permanent betterment of humanity. Now, while he spoke this during a time of war and a need for national unity, if we really take a step back and think about what the sales profession means, could this sentence not still apply? Again, in the service of salesmanship, you unite for the permanent betterment of humanity. We know who we're selling to, but what are we working for? I believe that when we embrace the idea that our work matters more than just our paycheck, our quota attainment, and the sustainability of the company we work for, all ships rise. So let's take a look. Although there's instability in the world and we're thinking about this top of mind right now, your purpose is higher than just your quota and just your commissions. And when we look at raising all boats and doing right by our customers and helping them achieve outcomes they never even thought possible, again, all ships rise. So, as always, we'd love to hear what you think. We'd love your feedback. We'd love your ideas. Please share this if you've gotten enjoyment out of it. And there's a lot more to come. So until next time, thanks again for listening.